Hi everybody, I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie,
Hello.
and together we are ThinkerThemer, and we are back from the US. We have just arrived back from, just yesterday, from Dice Tower West in Las Vegas. We weren't expecting to be able to go this year, and then it happened to align with a work trip for me, and so and because they were just dovetailing into each other, we were like...
It was just too perfect.
It was perfect.
I was like, well, I might as well tag along and, go to Dice Tower West as well.
And we had the best time. This time we were there only for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it felt like we didn't sleep, honestly. We
hardly slept. Yeah,
it was just a blur. I think I had a 30-minute power nap on one of the days and then just kept going. We ate way too much smash burger because that's in the Rio Hotel.
Yeah.
A smash burger every day.
Did I have a power nap? I think I had a 1-hour power nap while I was down in the gaming area with my eyes open. So I was just sort of like...
just powered down.
I just powered down.
And then,
I was saying, I feel like I'm on standby mode. You know when like a device is technically on, but it's not actually... Yeah.
I remember that. You were sitting next to me while I was playing.
Zombie mode, yeah.
But we got to meet so many people.
Yes.
So if you're watching this and you were there, thank you so much for coming up and saying hi. It was so nice to meet everybody. And we had a huge representation of the Joey fam.
Yes.
So our channel membership, thank you all for your support and for being there.
Yeah.
It was even bigger and better this year. At one point we had 7 tables of games going at once with the Joey fam and with people who were joining in, friends of the Joey fam. And it was so nice. In fact, one of the Joey fam members, Don, called our little area the Outback.
Yeah,
and
very appropriate.
It was perfect.
It's also at the back of the room.
It was at the back of the main hall.
Yeah.
And of course, we're Australian, so it was the Outback. And then everyone started calling it the Outback. I'll see you over in the Outback. And so I think that's going to stick.
That's excellent because you always know, it's like it was very easy to then always know, okay, if I don't know what I'm kind of doing, I can always go to the Outback and I know there's going to be a couple of tables of games going.
Exactly.
And there's a table of snacks. There's always like all the international snacks that we had all brought in. So that was pretty excellent.
It was so much fun. Yeah. So thank you everybody that was involved in that. And if you see us at a con in the future, maybe we'll just have to have an Outback section. We'll always find the back of the hall and just set up shop. So it was so much fun. And we, of course, got to discover a lot of games that were new to us. Some older games, some very new games, some hotness games, although not a lot of hotness, I've got to say. It was mostly older titles.
Yeah, and not that old. I think probably this year, and some of them are like last year's type.
Yeah. And a couple of prototypes, so we'll talk about those. We have 15 on our list, so we're going to move through them quite quickly. And please remember, we've played these games for the most part just once. So this is our early impressions only, and to give you an idea of what the game is like and what we felt about it to begin with, but no final thoughts on these games. But anyway, let's get into it with the first game.
All right. First game.
Get the title right.
Yeah, so it's Bug Council of Backyardia.
Backyardia?
Backyardia.
Backyardia.
So it's like a backyard. Yeah.
I will never get this title right. And
it makes perfect sense to me. It's like the Bug Council of Backyardia. But of course.
But this was a game that I was very much supporting when it was on Kickstarter, as in we were talking about it a lot on the channel. I don't even know if you were on the Kickstarter stuff at that point.
Probably was, but I have the worst memory. I'm like, did I talk about that? Oh, that's good.
But then I was backing it, and then their first Kickstarter got cancelled, but now I believe they went straight to retail or something else, and so someone had a copy there.
It worked out.
Got to play it. And it's a really interesting trick-taking game because you're playing with suits that are all different types of bugs, and there's this center board that represents each of those suits on there. And at the beginning of each round, you are going to declare whether you think that you're going to get exactly 0 wins or take 0 tricks, or you're going to go for as many tricks as you can.
Well, an alliance. You're going to do eventually a secret alliance to one of the suits or the types of bugs that are on the council.
And so it plays out like a trick-taking game, except for the fact that there's a mancala in the center board, and you get the opportunity, if you lose a trick, to manipulate that mancala. So you're going to, as usual, pick up all of the tokens that are on a particular suit.
Strength cubes.
And drop them one by one across the suits until you have kind of distributed them. But the interesting thing is, if it goes full circle, middle and there's tokens left over, they all get put into the center, and that center pool is dedicated to those who chose not to make an alliance. So the people who said, I will not win any tricks, if they manage to not win any tricks, they're going to get 10 points at the end of the round, plus whatever is banked in that center area. Those who were going to try to win tricks and make an alliance, at the end of the round, the card they have left over is going to be their alliance, and they're going to get bonus points according to the number of cubes that's left on that suit. So everybody is trying to manipulate this center board to work in their favor so that at the end of the round they're going to get more points.
Creates a really interesting dynamic because, for example, you know, if you've kind of gone no alliance, you're really invested in that central pool having the most strength cubes left, which means that you're trying to do the distribution, but in order to do that distribution, it only goes into the middle if there were so many in one of those groups that when you do the distribution, there's excess by the time that you go to make a full circle. So I found myself trying to, like, when I was a non-alliance, trying to like really stack up one of them to eventually
distribute them.
Yeah, but also you have to make sure that then you end up completely losing or being the lowest card in a trick to get the chance to do that distribution.
Yeah, and there's
otherwise,
there's that great tension because those who want to win want all of the cubes really concentrated and not spread out, and so then they start trying to lose so that they can make sure that doesn't get broken up.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Because you end up almost working collaboratively with the people who have the same goal as you. So that's really interesting. It's a game that I'd like to play more of. I think trick taking was certainly a theme of the con, and we'll
so hot right now.
And we'll talk about some more as we go through. But that was really cool. And I should say, we actually got to play it with Taylor from Taylor's Trick Taking
Oh my
table.
Goodness. Yes.
So go and check out his channel. It's all about trick taking. I was joking with him that he is really focused on one mechanic and maybe he should spread out to other card games.
Do you regret at some point like having only like solely focus on the one mechanic? Do you wish that you had gone done too? So we won't say what his answer was. He really loves trick taking.
And he's so good at it, and he helped teach a lot of different games over the weekend. He hung out a lot in the Outback. It was so lovely to meet you, Taylor. You're as nice in person as you are online.
Not even nicer and funnier even, which I didn't think was possible, but there you go.
There you go. The second game that we got to play and try was Earth. And now Earth was absolutely the hotness of the con. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was trying to play it. And most people did get a chance to play it because there were quite a few copies floating around. Different people had different copies.
The room that was like hot games, that room was actually really interesting, even to just walk through it, because they had all the games set up on the table. So all you had to do was, actually, I didn't actually play any of these games, but if there was one that was available, you would sit down and the game was already set up and ready to go.
Yeah, great idea to have them already set up and ready to go.
Absolutely. And so many games, like so many. So it was,
But we didn't play Earth in that room. In fact, we walked into the hall for the first time and we went to say hi to Richard Rado. And we found him and Jen by her glass stall. And they were just about finishing up a game of Earth. And they said, do you want to sit down? We'll play it again. And so we got the opportunity to play again. And it was a fantastic experience. Just anytime you get taught anything by Rado, it's just how does your brain work?
How when you're playing with Rado, it is exactly like the experience of watching Rado do a run through, because it's like the way he talks, he thinks out loud, just like, and I think that's probably a habit of, as you train yourself to think out loud so that you're explaining to the camera what you're doing. But every single, but maybe, I don't, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. Oh no, all of that is exactly.
100% exactly.
You have a little moment and you're like, am I in the video right now? Like, what's happening? Am I in one of the run-throughs? So he's exactly like what you see.
So we got to play with Rado and with Shay, and it was an interesting experience. This game, if you don't know anything about it, it was on Kickstarter and it's just about to deliver, I believe. But this game is really an engine building, tableau building kind of style game where you are trying to achieve multiple objectives. There are objectives that are kind of like public objectives that are randomized at the start of the game.
By the end of the game sort of thing. But then there's also during, like first to meet those.
Yes, and then there's also your own personal goals that you can actually build on as you're playing more cards out into a grid-like structure. And then the interesting thing is, as you're building out your grid, these cards also have storage spots for seeds to go onto them, and also you're growing these little trees on each of the cards as well. And there's just so many different ways to make points in this game. But the most interesting thing I think about this game is that it's one of those style of games where on the active player's turn, they will be choosing a main action out of 4 actions. But anybody who isn't the active player gets to take a minor version of that action, so a less powerful version of that action. And so that's just really interesting because it feels like simultaneous play because you're always getting to do something. And on your turn, it's quite an excruciating choice of which of the 4 main actions you want to do because they're all really powerful. And so you really need to focus your strategy. And I can absolutely see why so many people love this game. And a lot of people coming up to us being like, I just tried Earth, it's amazing. And I feel like it's going to be a huge hit when it actually, it's probably one of those games that's going to sell out pretty quickly. For me, it was like, I need more time with this game. It is very complex, very layered.
I found, because there's so many cards,
It's not hard.
It's not hard. I just found it, overwhelming because there's just so many things to keep track of in terms of like, there was like 4 different objectives that are like the race, like racing to be the first or second or third. Like obviously the later you go, you still will get points, but fewer and fewer points. And then there's the optional additional 2 objectives, plus you have your own objectives. So it's like, that's already a lot of it. And sometimes the objectives can kind of contradict each other a little bit.
And I forgot to say, the engine building element is so clever because it relates to those 4 main actions. So anytime someone activates the green action, for example, you get to activate all the green card actions that you have in your tableau as well. So you get more and more powerful as the game goes on.
Always are going to get like the sort of lesser action, like the weaker version of that action. But then you also get to activate everything on your tableau that is of that color. So that again is like, it means that I think it's
a lot going on.
It is a lot going on because it means that not only is it like a lot of games will have like even Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, like it's using that same mechanic where it's like, everyone, like you choose an action and everyone else gets to take a minor action, and that's usually the end of it. Here, because then you're also activating everything else in your tableau, that can sometimes be the thing that delays the game because someone may have created an incredible engine. They're like, sorry, one moment, I just need to like activate all my things. The other thing that I found really interesting is that as you're building your tableau, it activates in like reading order, sort of from top to top left to right, and as you go down,
another layer.
So that's another layer of going, okay, so then as I'm placing them, not only are some of the objectives based on the placement, adjacency and rows with this or columns with this, but then also it's like, I want to make sure that I'm as I place them, I'm generating stuff on the top that then I'm going to be able to use at the bottom when that gets out. So there is a lot.
I think it's a lot I think a lot of people will love this because there's a lot to sink your teeth into. So it's going to reward multiple plays, trying different strategies. 100%. And it's really not a game that we can review after one play.
Absolutely not.
Because it was a little bit overwhelming. But also the instinct that I have about it is that it's quite multiplayer solitaire, which might mean it's not going to be, hugely a high rating for me just because I like a lot of interaction. So there's a little bit of like, just you're doing your own thing, you're building your own puzzle, but it's a really great design, really interesting design.
I was happy to see one of my concerns was as you're building those 3D structures that they were going to be really like precarious, but they have this sort of like, they slot into each other, so they're actually way sturdier than I expected, so that was good.
Anyway, so that's Earth. Now moving on to the next game, which was one I didn't play actually.
No, so I played this game called, I think you would pronounce it Kolejka, which is Q, and it takes the 1980s in Poland when there was a lot of scarcity because it's sort of coming off the Soviet Union, and then there's a lot of scarcity in the shops, and so the entire game is about queuing at different sort of venues or places to get resource, to get food or to get clothing or to get essential kind of items. So it's quite a unique setting for a game. But then what ends up happening is it's a fairly take that-ish not take that ish, but yeah, I guess it's because you have a list, you have like your shopping list of what are the goods that you need to get. And it might be like, for example, from memory, I think I had to get like 4 clothing items and then 2 food and then 1, I think it was like a couple of bathroom type. And so those are all the different shops. And so as you're going, like the turns are you put your little meeples in the queue, and you have then also a general market that again, everything's very scarce. And as you're putting people in the queue, you know that whoever's first in the queue is going to get first dibs when that shop gets a delivery. Not every shop gets delivery. So you might have someone sitting in a shop for 2 or 3 or 4 rounds and they're just still waiting for a delivery to happen. Then there's cards and this is where the take that element comes in, and this was actually really, really thematic. One, I really felt the stress and anxiety of like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to get food. There's just not going to be food. And there's just no food got delivered. And you kind of hear, but then the actual cards themselves are like, for example, one of them was like, I have a baby, therefore I need to get to the front of the queue. And so you get to manipulate the things in the order of the queue. There was one that was hilarious. That was like you booze, you lose, where it's like you were drinking in the queue and you fell asleep. And so you get to keep your place in the queue, but when the shop opens up, everyone just sort of jumps over you.
Oh, no. Sounds very thematic.
It's extremely thematic. So like that was a really interesting kind of experience. And then there's also other things that then affect, like sometimes the delivery that might come to the food shop is there was nothing, and so you end up getting a furniture delivery, and you're like, so now I get to buy, but I get furniture and I didn't even need for it. So it's such an interesting, I think it's pretty tricky to get. And even the copy that we had was the Polish version that then they'd printed out sort of like things to put over the top with the English translation, so that you knew what the cards were. Such an interesting,
Sounds super interesting.
Yeah. So it's one that I wouldn't mind getting, just even though I don't tend to like take that element, because it's like that is the core of the game. I don't mind, because it's not like you're building up your thing to like, it's like it's all just messing around.
Another one to keep an eye on at the flea market to try and find.
Q or Kolejka, I think is
interesting.
Yeah.
And the next one is yet another trick-taking game. It is the game 535. It took me a long time, and in my defense, I was very tired to work out what the name of the game was referring to.
Why does it? Yeah.
But actually, all of
it was beautiful when you did understand it. You were like,
I was like,
the light bulb
and the whole table laughed because it was
so
explained
simple.
like 3 times.
But it's also
like,
such a simple.
I still don't understand. But basically, the cards run 1 to 15 in this game. However, the card 6 and the card 10 are missing from the deck.
Yeah.
So there's no 6
numbers,
there's
3
no
numbers,
10s.
5.
Yeah, so it's broken up as 5 numbers, 3 numbers, 5 numbers, and they are all different suits, or I think seasons, or weather.
Which means nothing. Yeah, it means nothing really.
It doesn't really mean much.
Yeah.
But the game plays out just as a trick-taking game would, but it's really interesting because you're trying to shed cards.
Yeah.
And you're doing that by playing on top of people's whatever they're playing. So it's more like a card shedding game than a trick-taking game.
It felt very reminiscent to Rummy Cube or Rummy Cub.
Yeah, card shedding.
Yeah.
It's not trick-taking at all now that I think about it.
No, they call them tricks, but it's not actually a trick. So, because even when you win it, well, technically it's like when you win it because you're the last person to complete the 5 or the 3 of that, then you just get to lead the next one. But that's not points or anything.
Yeah, and you can play runs of cards or you can play sets of cards.
Yeah.
And then other people get to build on those by adding to the run or adding to the set.
Yeah.
And you're just basically trying to get rid of all your cards, because when you do the round ends and people get stuck with cards in their hands that have points on them, and that's a bad thing in this game. So it was like fairly simple, but like kind of interesting.
Very satisfying to play.
It took me a little while to like work out what the strategy was.
But once you do, it's one of those like, it kind of takes you a couple of rounds, and then you're like, oh, okay, I got it, and then you get really, really fast, and then it's
absolutely no theme.
No, not at all. I like the illustrations on the cards, but you had zero theme. That's
theme.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. It was a quick game, and it was an interesting game. I don't know if I feel like I need to own the game.
I really liked it. I think I would love to, because it's so quick, and people kind of understand the concept of I'm just adding to complete a set, to add more to the set, or I'm adding to a run. So or a higher card. So I think that's an easy one to have around the house and use as a warm up.
There you go. Just another game that we need.
It's also a small box, so it won't take up too much.
It doesn't take much room.
Speaking of small boxes, another game that I played that you didn't get to play is called Kiitos, Kiitos, and I believe it's a game that came out of New Zealand, and we got to play it with one of the Joeys from New Zealand, so that was extra special.
Michelle, who we travelled halfway across the world to meet.
Yeah,
even though
we could travel 3 hours to see each other in Oceania down this side of the world, but so we decided to go 14 hours around to the other side and catch up there. So, but yeah, this is I don't tend to like word games, and it was funny because I said this. It's like, I don't tend to like word games, and I said it really quickly, and someone thought that I said I don't tend to like board games, and they're like, wait, what? It's like, you have a whole chat. It's like, are you having an existential crisis? And I was like, no, word games. And like, I thought this whole thing had been alive for years now. So
just
I don't tend to like
that takes up all of your spare time.
Yeah, but I don't really enjoy it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a word game where you're playing a card, and you're, for example, playing the first letter of a word, and you're saying that word. So, for example, and it has to be at least a 4-letter word. So I might say good and play the G. If the next person has the O, so if the next person has the next letter for that word, they have to play it. So they're forced to play it. But if they don't, they can change the word. So they might say, if they have, for example, R, they'll say great. And so they'll play the R. And again, so it goes on like that until if someone is not able to continue the word or create a new word with the next letter. Sometimes you can even do a previous letter. So it's kind of like 6-limit, where you can end up adding to either side. Then you lose essentially, and you're stuck with those cards, and each card is going to be 1 negative point. But if someone else completes your word that you had started, then those come back to you as a positive point. So that's essentially how you score. It's super, super simple, but it was, again, very, very satisfying, particularly for someone like myself who doesn't tend to enjoy word games. So that's Kiitos. Highly recommend it.
Nice, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
The next game I played and you didn't. We actually didn't spend a lot of time playing together.
No, we thought
we'd
divide and
it was like, goodbye, I'll see you at the end of the con.
That makes sense to me, because it means that then we got to play with more people.
Yeah.
So if we were both always in the same game.
We also have very, different tastes in games.
That's
and
true.
very different approaches to cons. As an aside, like I find it difficult to sit down for a long time because I'm so distracted by the social element of a con. I'd rather just wander around,
what's
talk
happening
to people.
over here and what's happening over there.
Yeah.
And I want to see hi to that person. And
So I didn't sit down and play too many heavy games. I was happy to sit down and play a short game, but most of the time I just wanted to be wandering, chatting,
And I'm like, no, sit down, let's learn a game and let's play for 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours later, Maggie's still there and I've done a million different things. But the next game this is not in order, by the way, but a game that I played was a game called Bonsai. And this game is actually not releasing until Gen Con. I was playing it with Ruel, who was teaching it. He had an early review copy. Always love an opportunity to see Ruel. And so he was teaching us. At the table was also Matthew from Room 51.
Yes, so great to meet in person finally.
We hadn't had a chance. We have not crossed paths before. And we got an opportunity to meet and play a few games and just hang out. And that was so, so wonderful. So thank you, Matthew, for dropping by. But in this game, it's a tile placement game, and the coolest thing about it is that you are building a bonsai tree. So you've got these hexagonal tiles that you are trying to draft, and they might be wood, i.e. the trunk of the tree. They could be leaves, so you're building out kind of the shape of the tree, and then there are flowers and fruit that you can add to the tree for more bonus points. And of course there are all the tiles are worth different amounts of points. There are bonuses that you can work towards, but on your turn, you're only doing one of two things. You are either drafting a card, or you are going to play tiles that you've accumulated onto your bonsai. And what's interesting is when you draft a card, it's either going to allow you to get more tiles into your collection, Or there are special cards that allow you to increase the amount of tiles that you can store. So if you place cards to the left, which are like the tool tiles, they're going to allow you to store more tiles. If you place them to the right, they are going to allow you to place more tiles every time you do the placement action. So the cards are going to help you build up your ability to do more powerful actions versus just getting cards that are bringing in more tiles. So it's kind of like balancing that off, and you're really just trying to build out the most interesting kind of bonsai tree. Abby, one of the Joey fan that we were playing with, said that I had the most thinker-like tree. It was very symmetrical. It didn't even look like a tree. It looked more like some ugly square.
Some optimized thing.
Whereas everybody else had like quite a beautiful, tree going on. Yeah, mine was pretty ugly. And also you can collect these cards that have different end game conditions that might give you more points than the standard amount of points for tiles and that type of thing. I really thought this game was very easy breezy. There was a little bit of downtime. I suppose, even though your turns came around quite quickly, I didn't feel like a need to engage very much with what everybody else was doing. But I really love the way the bonsai comes together. It's really novel. It's really pretty. It's really cute. I had... I'm not sure I love the artwork of the people that were depicted on some of the cards. I'm having this kind of a bit of a crisis at the moment, not crisis, but I'm getting a bit tired of seeing Asian people represented in games, in this game Bonsai, but also in another game that I sat down to look at, which was Bamboo, where, they're really shown in this kind of goofy caricature style, and I just wish we could move past that. I just feel like, and maybe it's because we have such a high Asian population here in Australia, and that's not the case in, with these Italian designers or wherever else these games are being made. But I just wish a little more care was put into the way that Asian people are represented. Yeah. But anyway, Bonsai, interesting game. You'll start to see that pop up probably more in the middle of the year. But I had a lot of fun playing that. Nice. And the next game that we're going to talk about is a game called Mind Management.
Yes, we played this with Alex from Board Game Co. and with Professor Meg as well. So that was fun.
That was so much fun. And, we kept passing each other. We're like, we must play a game. We must play a game. And I just love both of these people. Yeah. They are just so wonderful. And it's always such a pleasure when we get to bump into each other.
Yeah.
And so we sat down and we played this game. And Alex taught. And he's another one where he's so great at teaching games.
So fast at learning them and teaching them.
And such a great memory for rule sets as well. And after mentioning that he learnt Luna in 15 minutes at another con we were at together, now he always updates me with how this one only took me 10 minutes. Yeah. Don't worry, your reputation is safe.
Yeah.
But we played Mind Management, and this is a one versus many game. And we were setting up while Maggie was still finishing off another game, and they said who should be the one, and I said I think it should be me because poor Maggie does not like that feeling.
Too stressful. I cannot cope with that. Yeah. Also, I was so brain dead by then that it was my team is going to have to do the most of the heavy lifting, which they did.
And I think you were on your second teach of Unconscious Mind.
Yeah, so I kind of set up Unconscious Mind because people obviously wanted to play it, and then ended up teaching them twice back to back. And it's it's a big...
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Anyway, back to Mind Management. It is a hidden movement game where the person who is the one running around, I don't even know what the theme is. You're trying to recruit something.
Yeah, they were these... I can't remember what they're called. They're sort of know. Undeads or sort of the little your followers.
So basically I had a hidden map and I was moving around the map and everybody else was trying to hunt me down and find the square that I was in. And there's an interesting way that deduction game works because I couldn't go into the same square twice. So I was moving around the board but I couldn't kind of backtrack. And then also there's all these different symbols or illustrations depicted in each square, and I was trying to, as stealthily as possible, collect 3 of these different types of icons. And so they kind of knew that they could narrow down. Over time it gets revealed. They're asking questions about different symbols, and as they can mark those off, they can kind of work out what I'm collecting and therefore deduce where I might have gone in order to try and collect those, because I was trying to collect as many points as I could to end the game, or alternatively the other way to end the game is to just run out the clock.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think it was the last turn before I was about to run out the clock, I was able to place all of my, or collect all of my points or whatever it was. So I did end up winning, but by a very narrow margin, and it was quite stressful.
It was such a blur for me. I was like, I was so surprised that you managed to win that. It was actually quite tricky to get keep on your tail, so to speak. But I was like, I'm not very good with deduction games and hidden movement games. So I'm like, I don't know how you could ever figure this out. So luckily, my team was there going, okay, well, maybe we'll do this and we will do that. And they'll be like, should we do this? They're like, yeah, sure.
I feel like the team dynamic was interesting because Maggie was kind of going with the flow. Alex was definitely trying to puzzle it out, very logic focused. And Professor Meg was very instinctual. And often her instinct was absolutely spot on. And I was sitting there looking at my map being like, oh, don't just guess and do that because you're probably going to catch me. And so that was quite an interesting dynamic. And that was really fun. Again, maybe not my style of game. Like, I don't feel the need to own it. I can see why people love it.
Beautiful art. Like, I really enjoy the artwork.
The artwork is
in that
really
one,
lovely.
and how like all these other different packs. So that like this box kind of opens up, and you have all these different packs to help even out if like one side is winning too much or the other side is winning too much. So that was pretty cool as a production. Yeah,
a beautiful game.
Yes. All right, the next game is another trick-taking game that we actually got to play with the designer of Yokai Septet.
Well, the publisher.
Oh, the publisher, not the designer, the publisher of Yokai Septet. And this is Dan. So this was an excellent place in time to be playing this game because this is a trick-taking game with roulette as the middle thing or the sort of central theme of it. So it's called, the translation is Roulette-Taking Game. Very literal.
Very literal.
It's a trick-taking game with roulette.
Exactly what you're doing.
But it's so interesting because you're essentially, all the cards are all the numbers from the roulette table, including the 0 and the 00. The suits are going to be red, black, and green for the zeros. And so the whole way it plays out is there's also these the trump suit, the trump cards are all the primary numbers.
Prime numbers.
It's the prime numbers.
Yeah.
And so it's such a bizarre thing because the whole thing is as you're playing tricks, if you win the trick, you actually get to
place a bet.
Yeah, you get to place bets. Ultimately, the placing, like winning tricks along the way doesn't really matter as long as, for points. It's just because it gives you an opportunity to place bets. What you're betting on is what's going to be the final card that will win the final trick. And as you're going, as cards are being played, you're covering up all the cards that have been played because that's not going to be, they're gone from the game and they're not going to be. That was such an interesting dynamic because there's this whole thing with the trump cards. It's like, obviously, because they're the prime numbers, you sort of, there's no way to see them on the actual roulette kind of display, but they're kind of signaled on your hand with like, they have a different type of illustration on the card. So you're like, ooh, okay, I'll keep this one.
But the most interesting thing is they only act as a trump if they are the opposite suit to...
If they're not the suit.
If they're not the lead suit.
Yeah.
And so that creates this really weird dynamic where it's like, I've got this powerful trump card, but actually if someone plays a card and leads the trick with the same color, it's useless.
You have to you're forced to play it because you're forced to follow suit, and then it's not acting as a trump.
Yeah, so it's really difficult to work out how that last hand is going to play out, and that's what makes the betting really interesting. It's also interesting that each round one player will play as the dealer or the house.
Yes.
And so they're not placing bets, but they're trying to block out numbers. But also, if all of the losing bets, they get to, of course, as the house, collect all of that money.
Yeah.
So it's just a really interesting dynamic. And at the end of the game, the person with the most money wins, as you would expect.
And the payout is based on like roulette type payout.
Yeah,
of,
so
like
50 to 1.
Yeah, so it's like if you did thirds or if you did, 50-50, like, so it's like obviously the more risky the bet is, the bigger the payout. So super interesting.
Super thematic, of course, because it's just like playing roulette. And then, of course, it integrates trick taking, which Maggie is naturally quite good at. So Maggie actually destroyed Ruel, Dan, and I at this game.
Yeah, I made $100 game dollars, and at that point I was like, woohoo, we eat tonight. I just want us dinner and fake game money.
But a super interesting game. What a game that could only come out of Japan. I think it is really hard hard to get your hands on. I think Dan's company, Ninja Star, actually takes games from Japan and brings them into a broader audience. So it was one that, he just happened to have on him. So that was really interesting. And the next game was another trick-taking game out of Japan, which is called Dog Tag Trick. Now, you can see I have this here because this was gifted to us by a wonderful Joey fan member, Lisa. Thank you so much for bringing this along, and for she said, I had a feeling that you would like this, and you're absolutely right.
I haven't played it yet,
Maggie
but I love the artwork on the cards,
so
all the individual doggies.
Yes, Lisa did have the opportunity, thank you, to teach me, so I got to play a game of it, and the one element is that every card has a unique dog illustration on it, so super cute. That had me at that. Actually, when I opened the deck, the first card I pulled out was the pug. I know, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so cute. But the way it plays is really interesting because you're part of a dog show, and you're all trainers that have these dogs that are going into the dog show. And when you play a trick, it's interesting because there are two simultaneous competitions that are going on. There's the main event, which is played out by pairs of cards. So, you can play a pair of cards to kind of kick off that trick. Or you can play a single card and then have an opportunity to make points in the side event. Okay, so if you can't contribute in the the main event, well, maybe you're just going to go off into the not the best in show, but you're going to
other smaller competitions.
And this plays out though in a single round. So there might be two players who are competing over that 2-card trick, and then there might be two players who are competing over the single card trick, and then you get different kind of tiers of points. And the way that the points are tracked is really cool too, because the player aid overlays with a scoring card, and you just slide that across to show how many points you have, and at the end of the game the person with the most points wins.
Nice.
Really cute, really easy concept, easy to get into, and I just thought it was different enough with that main event, secondary event.
Looking forward to playing that.
Yeah, super cute. I look forward to teaching you and showing you all the cute little cards.
So cute. Yeah,
another game out of Japan. Of course, with trick taking, and we played a lot of trick taking, but we love it. So and thank you so much, Lisa, for bringing this for us. Super cool. And the next game was one I played.
Yeah, and I didn't. I got to see it in my what do you call it? What are we calling that? My power down mode.
Yes. This game is Gutenberg, and this is a game that kind of made a huge splash, and lots of people were talking about it at the time that it was launched. I'd heard good things, and then it kind of died down, and people moved on to new hotness, and then I didn't hear much about it after that. I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't that good, or maybe it was just I don't know. But randomly it was set up out in the outback, and I got a chance to sit down and play. And we joke about this because the game lasted for I don't even know how long.
Far too long.
3 or 4 hours, and we called
It's not meant to last that long.
No, we called it the Outback edition of Gutenberg because we were just there chatting. Every time someone walked past, we were talking to them.
Yeah, it got interrupted a lot, and then towards the end, it was worse because it was going on for so long. People were intentionally interrupting it to kind of make fun of how long it was going, which then just made it go even longer. So,
but it was super interesting in the way it plays. So in this game, there are a series of different actions, and you are trying to publish books. That is my best interpretation of the theme.
I can't help because I didn't actually see the theme.
And to publish books, you need to work on these tracks that are going to give you more access to ink and leather and things that you need to publish. But the coolest thing is that you're also collecting these I don't even know what that, letter stamps, and they are wooden and kind of raised so that they look like actual letterpress kind of cubes, I suppose. Cubes? That's totally the wrong word. I have no idea.
I wish I could help you, but I can't.
No, I know. I'm on my own here with the theme. Nice. But I love that about it because immediately it has this awesome presence. A lot of people would say it's too beige, but I think it was just beige enough.
The right amount of beige.
Yeah, but the cool thing is the way that you're selecting actions, and what you're trying to do is fulfill book orders, but the way that you're going to get all the things done in this game is by bidding. And so there's this really interesting dynamic with, depending on which player you are in the player order, or the turn order, you're going to get a different number of cubes. And then everybody at the same time, in secret, is going to allocate those cubes to the actions that they want to get done in this game. Then we all reveal those cubes and the actions play out in a set order, but the person who gets to go first for that particular action is the person who bid more cubes on that action. And so if you really, really want to collect a certain color of ink and there's only one token of that on the board, you might want to put all of your eggs in one basket, but then that means that you might not get to do any other actions at all. And how much does anybody else need that ink? And so you're kind of looking around the table and you're always trying to game out, like, what is the chances that I'm going to get that thing that I need?
Right.
So I actually really enjoyed that element of it. I don't tend to like bidding. It's not high up on my favorite mechanics, but it really works nicely in the action selection kind of this game. I do feel like, if we weren't being interrupted, it would be quite a swift game.
You would, yes.
Because it's not super complex. You're just like, you're drafting orders, then you're trying to fulfill them, you're trying to get your track up as far. I was making a huge error, and about a third of the way in the game I was really far ahead. I was like, this is impossible. Why am I so far ahead? And then I realized I'd been doing something really wrong, and all of a sudden I had to minus 25 points off myself.
Very advantageous in your favor. Bank error in your favor.
And I actually thought it was like quite a nice, mid-level Euro style game, and I thought Maggie might like it. I saw it at the flea market, and so I purchased it. So we will be probably talking about this game more as I get an opportunity to teach Maggie.
Nice.
But that is Gutenberg.
The next game was also one that only you played. And it's also bidding, and that's Dice Manor.
Dice Manor is an interesting game. It's a fairly new game from Arcane Wonders, and this game was one that we actually sat down and learnt together, like myself and a group of the Joey fam. And basically it is a dice placement game, but you are using dice in order to bid for certain things. And what you're trying to do in this game is build out your manor. So that's why it's called Dice Manor, is you are building out this set of rooms, and the way you're going to do that is you need to bid on the tiles that are rooms that are going to be placed into your manor using dice that you are rolling and then placing out onto the board on your turn one at a time. And so you can be like outbid. You might want a certain type of room because you're looking for room diversity, for example. You also want to go for rooms that have a nice sequence of numbers, because another thing that you can do is give a tour of your manor by placing out the right numbered die in the right room to help kind of lead people through your manor, and you're going to get a lot of points by doing that. And the other thing you can do is you can advertise your manor, and so you can bid on that as well, and that's going to help you increase what is fairly abstract an advertising track. But the reason why you want to do that is because it unlocks more die that you're going to... More dice. What is wrong with me? I never get that right. To go into your pool, and of course the more dice that you have, the more opportunities you have to outbid people. So a very simple game. It was quite an interesting game. I really liked the building out of the manor, but definitely one that I'll teach you. I think you were watching, actually. This might have been part of your power down, just chilling out.
I didn't actually get to watch Gutenberg. This was the one that I actually got to watch and try and piece together and make a little bit of sense. But it looked
fairly simple, very, very straightforward. I think it would be very
There were some hilarious moments of like, are you really going to, because you're kind of rolling those dice and then adding to groups and then kind of overtaking other groups. And there was a moment of like head-to-head outbidding where it's like these two people around the table got so like just, what do you call it? Like laser focused on that everyone else was like, no, I'm just going to do all these other things over there because they're just fighting over this one area.
Using all of our dice. That was not the best. That was not my proudest moment. Not the best round. It didn't pay off either.
But it looked interesting.
The next game is another one that I played while Maggie was probably in a 5-hour game or something, which was Cosmoctopus. So this is a game that was on Kickstarter. It's by Henry, the designer of Parks. And this is a game that we hadn't had a chance to play. And of course, I was playing a prototype because it hasn't been delivered. It's going to be published by Lucky Duck Games. And so Bree from Lucky Duck Games was teaching myself and Nick from the Brothers Murph. And so that was a really fun dynamic where Nick was convinced that I was targeting him in this game. A game that is very non-confrontational. There's possibly no way to target anybody in this game. But did pretty well at this game, I must say. And it was really interesting. So in this game, you are trying to collect octopus tentacles. And the first person to collect, I don't know how many it was, maybe 8. That would probably
make sense.
I think that would make the most thematic sense.
I don't know the game.
Sometimes I say things and I'm thinking about it in a very abstract way. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So you're collecting these 8 tentacles. But there's this Cosmoctopus, this octopus in space, that is his head. You are going to be shifting around a grid of cards. And these cards are going to have different bonuses depicted on them. They are either going to give you straight up resources, which you're going to be able to collect in your player area, or they're going to give you new cards which go into your hand from a market, and these cards are going to be the things you want to play down in your tableau using the resources that you've collected.
Yeah.
Now, the cards are really interesting because they have that splendor-like element where when you play them down, they become permanent resources.
Good.
Yes, so you've got the permanent resources that are going to help you buy more cards, play more cards, but also there are goals where you need to get like 13 of one resource. First person to do that gets actually 2 tentacles to add to their collection. But the problem is that the physical resources, you can only have max 8. So you need to have some permanent ones or some tricky little things that you do on your turn before you have to then go down to 8 resources, if that makes sense. There are also cards that you play that are just going to give you straight up tentacles, which is great, but you need to collect resources on those cards in a certain order. And there's just a lot going on, but basically it's a race. And it was really interesting because you are relying on people to move that octopus kind of towards the things that you need. You can pay resources to move it further because you can only move it once on your turn. I really love the artwork of this game. In fact, more specifically, I really love the font choice in this game.
Very specific
I
indeed.
think it is really fun, and the illustrations are really fun as well. And I think it was more complex than I expected looking at the box of the game, and I really had fun kind of puzzling it out and optimizing my way through. So that is First Thoughts of Cosmoctopus.
The next game also I didn't play. It's a you game.
What game is that?
I think, is it called Wandering Castles?
The Wandering Castles.
What was I doing this whole time?
Yeah,
I think I was stuck in like a couple of like 3 or 4 hour games.
Yeah. So this game is a Kramer and Kiesling game that was launched at Essen Spiel last year. And I actually had never seen it before, but it's got this wizard on the front, it's this beautiful cover box. But the most intriguing part of it is the table presence. So when you look at this game, it's these 3D castles all in a circle. Yeah, super cool. And then you have these wizard meeples. And the idea of this game is that you're moving around in a clockwise order, and you have these cards that allow you to either move the wizards or move the castles. And the castles stack on top of each other. So you end up with this huge tower of towers, or just one large tower, if you will. But the cool thing is that the meeples also move across the top of the towers. And so if you place a tower on top of a meeple, you lose track of where your meeples are. Yeah. So, and this is probably a mechanic that a lot of gamers really dislike, is there's a bit of a memory element to this game.
No.
Oh no! Everybody shudders. Oh no!
Memory.
But it's cute and it's light. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to drop your wizards into this one tower, this kind of black tower that's different to all the others. That is moving around. So you're trying to chase down this tower and be the one to be dropped into it. And you need to get all of your wizards into the tower. And you also need to fill 4 potion bottles. And you fill the potion bottles by covering up other people's meeples. Right. So you are encouraged to play this hide and seek game by covering up people's meeples. And you're also encouraged to move your meeples as fast as possible to get into this tower. And the person who can do both of those things is going to win the game. Okay. There's also these bonuses that you can spend your filled potions on in order to manipulate the game, moving things backwards, kind of mess with the rules of the game. Or you can use it to lift up the towers to find where your meeples have gone, because many times I lost track. Yeah. I lost track of where my meeples were. And when one of the goals is to move move all of your meeples into this space. It's like,
I don't know where.
Now I'm going to have to move these castles to find them.
Oh,
so yeah, really simple, definitely family weight, but it was quite difficult to puzzle it out. I did find that, you know, when someone got close to winning the game, it kind of fell on everybody else to stop them from winning the game. And so that could be frustrating because, you know, you're so close and now everyone's going to make it such that you can't win on your... Yeah, sabotage you. So you can't win on your turn. So, yeah, you know, if you're not a fan of that...
I don't enjoy those.
Or if you're not a fan of memory.
That dynamic,
I feel like this is going to be a polarizing game, but really incredible table presence. So check that out if it's for you.
The next one is actually a prototype. So there are a couple of prototypes that we played, and this one is called Motiff, and it is a 1800s Vienna, and you're an aspiring composer after Mozart has, you know, it's like almost a decade after Mozart has passed away, and you're kind of going through Vienna and you're doing all the things that you're kind of working your way from like writing folk music and chamber music all the way through developing your ability to write symphonies and operas. But the other thing is, like, the way that you actually score points is there's some points from writing and actually composing, but the majority of points you get by performing the things that you've composed and then publishing those things. And then also then being able to, for example, there's like all sorts of different objectives along the way. It is one of the most purest sort of Euro experiences, worker placement, and that style of, you know, you're working, you're placing your workers, but they don't take the action at the point that you place them. They take the action when you then bring them all back. So you're sort of doing that whole, you're kind of hoping that you're going to get to take these different actions and that you haven't kind of closed yourself off too much. So very, very simple. Like, the mechanics are all mechanics that as Euro players we all kind of know and love. It was the single most thematic experience with a Euro that I think I've ever had. So this is ever. So I don't think of all of the thematic Euros. Obviously, it's not a narrative type game. You're not reading passages or things like that. It's a pure Euro, but everything, absolutely everything, makes such a direct, logical, thematic sense, to the point that the banter that happens as you're going places and doing things is just so natural, because it's like, of course this would be happening. Of course, like, your resources are paper, ink, and inspiration. And the way that you get inspiration is you go to the theater, or you go to a museum, or you go to the countryside, or you go to the park, or you go. And so and then you also have like unique, sort of your own kind of unique character, sort of like a very slight asymmetric ability. So for example, mine was the naturalist. So I would get more inspiration whenever I'm in the presence of nature. So if I go to the countryside or I go to the park, I get... So all of the characters were so well thought out, and it was just such a satisfying thematic delight. So this is a game that's not actually yet kind of, like, it's sort of shopping for a publisher at the moment. But after that, I was like, this makes me want to go and watch. You know, when a game makes you go and watch a movie, it's like now I'm in this sort of theme. I went off and watched...
Most thematic Euro experience ever. Like,
I'm going to call it. Yeah, I'm going to call it. So, like, I really, really do
hope... You can put that on the box.
Yeah. Put that as a quote from Maggie Themer right there. I went and watched Amadeus, because I'd never actually seen it, even though I've been a film student. And I was watching the movie going, holy crap, there were so many things that the game got right that were like, yeah, this now makes sense because I feel like I've done those things. So, like, that is, highest praise.
Oh, it'd be good then if it came with like a book that describes why things are the way they are.
Yeah,
probably
and
learn a lot.
Nate, the designer, he comes from a line of like a family of musicians. So he himself is a musician, but his entire family sort of has had a history of classical music, which is obviously all of that, where that world comes from. So he's just so... immersed in that, or so passionate about it, and it really does come through. So I'm very excited and very hopeful for this game to, like, a publisher to pick it up and it get
High
get
praise.
made.
I'm looking forward to playing it. It is. It seems like a longer game, like it's on the heavier side of things.
It's actually not a heavy. It's kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of like, viticulture, where where it's a medium heaviness. But because you're doing so much, a game of viticulture, if you're playing at a higher player count, it can go for a few hours.
Yes, it can. Yeah.
But that whole time that you're playing, you don't feel like, oh my god, this is going forever. You never hit that point where you're like, this is overstaying its welcome. So that's how I felt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's Motiff.
There you go. Yes. And the other prototype that we played was Raas. I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Yes, like the love dance.
The love dance. That comes from Indian culture.
Yes.
And Mihir, who is the designer of Viticulture
One of the designers,
is now designing this game in collaboration with another designer. Forgive me, I can't remember the other designer's name. But we got to play the prototype version, and again, another game that is yet to be announced to any publisher or anything. But this game is gorgeous.
It is
absolutely stunning.
Such a cool mechanical, almost like the table presses with the colorfulness of it.
Yeah.
But then the contraption where they
series of interlocking
gears.
Circles or gears that have dice on them that are all different colors as well. So straight away, as soon as you see it on the table, it has incredible presence. And what it's meant to represent is this dance where people are dancing in a circle, in separate circles, and swapping partners as they go through and try and meet their match. And even though this is very much quite an abstract game, when you think about that overlay of theme,
I wouldn't say it's that abstract.
Well, what you're doing is fairly abstract, but as in when you see the circles, it makes so much sense if you have seen the Indian dance. And Mihir actually showed us a video of what this dance looks like in real life, and then you can it totally comes to life.
Yeah.
And what you're doing in this game is, what's really interesting is you're drafting a die on your turn, but you are only able to take from the segment that is facing you on each of these dials, and depending on which die you draft from which segment, it's also going to give you a bonus action as well. And there's so many layers to this, but really what you're doing is you've got 3 dancers in training and you are trying to upskill them. And there's also going to be an objective for each one of those dancers. And so you're trying to get the right dice on the right dancer in the right combination as per the objectives. But then there's all these other things that are going on. So there's going to be a song that plays at the end of each round. Yeah. And only the dice that have the same tempo as that song. So if it's a 2 song, then you need dice that show 2 on them, and you're going to score points only for those dice. And so a lot of the things you can get done is obviously to manipulate the dice. And the other thing you can do is you can change the what's it called with the where you change the value that you're going to score, so the multiplier.
Oh yeah, you're spectators. So how many people are actually watching?
I knew you would remember.
It's like if you're dancing and no one's watching, did you even never dance? Did you? It's like when the tree falls in the wood. We won't get into that discussion. But yeah.
And then there are also these dance sticks, and I apologize, I can't remember the correct term for them. Yeah. But you can collect these sticks as well that are going to give you bonus points. There's
dresses
a lot of
for the dancers.
Yeah. Yes.
But have you talked about the matching?
No.
Oh, the matching is the best. So when people take their dice, that kind of circle spins, so those dancers kind of move, and then you see if you got a love match, a love connection with the wheels on either side, and you get a love connection based on either matching the same color. The color represents the style of dance that dancer is good at or is dancing, or the number, which represents the skill level, which to me is kind of like you saw someone across the room and you're like, hey, you also love that kind of dance, we should hang out, or you're also incredibly talented like I am, so we should hang out. So it's like, I like that. So
you're also talented.
Because it's like, that's the skill level, the pip value is the skill level. And so when you do manage to get 1 or 2 matches, you have this love track, which is sort of this other track that you go up, and then it gives you another other like additional benefits and lets you kind of modify the board in different ways. So like lots going on, but it all kind of made sense to me. Like, it was pretty.
It definitely makes sense, and I was really enjoying puzzling it out. But what was interesting is this was a game that I felt was more complex than probably the average person. So no one else was having as much, of a time trying to work out what colors were doing what and that kind of thing. And I know the reason for this, and I spoke to Mahira about it afterwards, is that like any puzzle that involves color takes me much longer to process. And I hadn't worked that out until we started reviewing games and, just noticed that I was finding this much harder. So if it's like numbers or symbols, I can very easily see what's happening on the board. If I have to look at different colors, it cognitively, it takes me way longer to process.
Whereas for me, it's actually faster. Like for me, if there's colors, I'm like, great, I can do like...
Maggie sees life in full color.
Apparently I do.
I really struggle with it. I need like symbols and structure.
From like an accessibility, and it's not a vision impairment sort of thing or like a color blindness or anything like that. It's just like your brain doesn't think in colors.
It's just the speed at which I can process that information.
But the thing, obviously, this was a prototype, but I think one of the things that like Mahir was talking about was that the dice would also have symbols, which again would help with color blindness and things like that. So then you might be able to then go to the symbols instead.
Yeah. Very interesting. That was a really interesting prototype. Looking forward to seeing that come to life more. Yeah. I'm sure it will get picked up and published soon because it's just an incredible puzzle, the way that everything works mechanically.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah. And now that's the 15 games that we tried for the first time. There were probably a couple of new to us games. There were probably a couple more that we just are not top of mind. But there is one other game that I want to talk about that is definitely not new to me. But this is a new edition, so it's kind of sneaking in.
And it was a gift.
And that is Taco Puck Maple Syrup Canoe, the Canadian edition of Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, given to me by Shelby, one of our Joey fans. Thank you so much, Shelby. Really thoughtful gift, because if you don't know already, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I absolutely adore Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. So much so that the designer knows who I am.
Has a restraining order, I guess to say.
Has a photo up on his wall that I do not let this person near me.
And he knows security.
He knows who I am, and it's got nothing to do with the channel. So
not at all.
Not at all. I'm just that huge fangirl that came up to him, wanted a photo with him, wanted to sign a copy. And this game, a really simple game. It's so much fun, and we had so much fun playing this edition of it. But basically, as everyone knows, or a lot of people would know, you are saying the word. So in this case, as you play a card, you're saying taco, the next person says puck, the next person says maple, the next person says syrup, the next person says canoe. If when you're doing and revealing a card from your pile of cards, the symbol matches what you're saying, so you say taco and a taco appears, everybody has to slam the table. Now, the idea of this game is to get rid of cards. If you're the last to slam down or do the action that you're meant to, you have to take all of the cards, increasing your pile. Very simple game. Maggie had a safety warning on the original game where, we have this house rule where you slap down in front of you.
I don't like going when everyone's rushing hands into the middle because, this sort of stuff and can happen, like broken fingers and scratches and things. So
and then we met someone in Australia who actually pretty much broke her finger from playing this specific game. And so Maggie felt very vindicated.
Yes, I was like, oh my goodness, my fears were confirmed. And so,
And so while we were playing this, Maggie was not there.
No.
And we were playing it, having a great old time. Actually, Monica, one of the Joey fam, was recording the game. Have you watched it yet?
I have not, actually. Yeah, I haven't watched it. What happened? Oh, no.
Well, look, spoiler alert, but let me say, you can still hurt yourself even when you're hitting down in front of you.
What?
Even with the house rule, it is really possible to really hurt your hand.
What did someone do?
Well, you'll have to watch just to find out. But anyway, that is the...
This game is just not safe. We just need to remove it altogether.
15+1 game that we played at Dice Tower West. We hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you again to everybody who made this experience such a special one for us. If you weren't able to get to Dice Tower West, I hope we can catch up with you somewhere else in the world, play a game with you, because it's just... The community is so special to us. All of the viewers, the people who comment, it's just a reminder of just this amazing group of people.
Yeah.
And we adore you. So thank you so much for everything. Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.